T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go Falcon. Go Falcon.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the Merah Putih 2 payload. During ascent, we tilt the engines, also known as gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally in what we call a gravity turn. In a gravity turn, the vehicle is still going up, but now we're also heading horizontally away from the launch pad. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
Just heard, we had max Q, and the rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. So keep an eye on the Stage 1 telemetry that's at the bottom of your screen. Now we have 3 events coming up in quick succession, starting with MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, SES-1, or second engine start 1. And that's coming up in around 30 seconds from now.
Vehicles on the nominal trajectory.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there you heard and even saw those 3 events that happened back to back, which were MECO, stage separation, and second engine start 1. Coming up next will be fairing separation. That's in about a minute from now.
Impact and pressures are nominal.
We have some really beautiful views from space. You can see the grid fins have deployed on the left-hand side of your screen on the first stage.
Fairing separation confirmed.
We just saw fairing separation, and we'll be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again today once they fall back to Earth with our recovery vessel, Bob.
Both vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
It's now T plus 4 minutes and 20 seconds into today's mission. Just past the T plus 6 minute mark, you should see on your screen the first stage entry burn. To start the entry burn, we'll relight 3 M1D engines, starting with the center engine, known as E9, followed shortly by the E1 and E5 engines. And it's similar to pumping the brakes to slow down the vehicle as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We need to slow down to reduce re-entry forces, which then helps us recover and reuse the first stage. During the entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but we're still moving really fast, and this causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, which are also known as the plume, and this deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle surface. And that soot comes from the carbon-based fuel, the RP1, that Falcon 9 burns, and with each flight, the soot builds up a little bit more on the outside of the vehicle. Oftentimes, prior to launch, you can see that soot on the first stage as it's sitting on the pad. We have a really awesome view of stage 2, and you can see on your screen it's still picking up speed, and as it heads to its destined orbit.
Both stages are on a nominal trajectory.
Entry burn on the first stage is coming up in a couple seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safed.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
So on the left-hand side of your screen, we have stage 1. You could see that it really decelerated as its speed slowed down. Reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, which enables more investments in critical scientific research. The Falcon 9 first stage that's supporting today's mission will perform this entry burn for its 17th time, having previously supported missions like CRS-22 and 25, NASA Crew 3 and Crew 4, and Turksat 5B.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 transonic.
The Merlins on the first stage are optimized for sea level and achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust each during ascent and entry. After liftoff, Falcon 9's first stage has more thrust than 5 747 airplanes at full power. The MVAC engine, with a much wider nozzle, is optimized to 220,500 pounds of thrust in vacuum.
Stage 1 landing burn startup. And back shutdown.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And there
Stage
you
1
have
landing
it.
confirmed.
That landing marks SpaceX's 275th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. We still have one more burn of our second stage engine before we're ready to deploy Merah Putih 2 today. In a moment, we'll be going into coast, and we'll see you back here at the T+27 minute mark for the relight of our MVAC engine.
MVAC ignition.
So we just had confirmation of second stage burn of the MVAC engine on the second stage. And before we go to coast, let's learn a little bit more about today's mission. Telkomsat has chosen the Thales Alenia Space as the prime contractor of the satellite for on-ground delivery and making it in charge of early orbital positioning and in-orbit tests. Built on the Spacebus 4000 B2 platform, Merah Putih 2 will provide a capacity of more than 32 gigabits per second and a service life of 15 years. This is Telkomsat's first satellite with multi-spot high-throughput technology, or HTS.
And back shutdown.
Merah Putih 2's HTS technology will provide broadband internet services with more capacity than conventional non-HTS satellites currently available in Indonesia.
Nominal deploy orbit insertion.
So we just had confirmation of second engine cutoff and nominal orbital insertion, which is great news. We'll be back in a few minutes for the deployment of Merah Putih 2.
Payload separation confirmed.
An awesome view and confirmation of payload deployment of the Merah Putih 2 satellite. And with that, we've got confirmation of a good deployment. All of us here at SpaceX want to thank our customer, Telkomsat, for entrusting us with today's mission. And we also want to give a shout out to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's efforts. That'll conclude our webcast coverage of SpaceX's 300th successful launch of Falcon 9, our 16th launch of 2024, and 311th overall mission to date. If you're interested in more launch coverage, be sure to check spacex.com/launches for the most up-to-date info. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon.